In this video, we're going to look at topic 18, example 3, write a system of equations. So we're told that Monisha and Holly have 14 more days to finish reading the same novel for a class. Monisha is currently on page 96 of 220, and Holly is on page 6 of 220. Monisha plans to read 9 pages each day, while Holly plans to read 20 pages each day. So we have Monisha and Holly. Assuming Holly and Monisha both maintain their reading plan, when will Holly catch up with Monisha? Who will finish reading the novel first? All right, so Monisha, we know that the total pages, so we'll say her total pages, or we'll call that our y, is going to be equal to 96, because that's where we're starting, plus what is she reading? 9 pages per day, plus 9 per day. So we can say is 96 plus 9x, x being each day. And Holly, right now, her total pages is going to be equal to page 6 plus 20 per day. So we can write that as y equals 6 plus 20, 20x. All right, so I'm going to type each one of these into my graphing calculator so we can go through some of the steps here. So 96 plus 9x and 6 plus 20x. Oh, let's try that again. 96 plus 9x and then 6 plus 20x. All right, this is going to be a pretty difficult one to graph by hand, mostly because you're going to wind up with a fair amount of decimals and things like that. And if we take a look at our graph, this window doesn't fit very well, so we would need to zoom out or do some zoom fit. So I'm going to try option 0 and see what happens here. All right, so that's not too bad. I see eventually they'll cross. I can kind of work with this, but this graph doesn't become very helpful. What I am going to need is I'm going to need the table, and that table will be far more helpful. So I'm going to graph Monisha's first. At x of 0, we have 96, which makes sense. That should be our y-intercept. So we're going to try to make this as accurate as we can, but it's not going to be perfect. Then we're going to go every couple points. So 3, 123, that would be somewhere about here. And we're doing this by hand, so don't expect perfection. 6 and 150, that's a little more user-friendly for us, so that's going to be about here. And let's get one more point. So let's say 10 and 186. So that's going to be somewhere around here. All right, so I'm going to plot those points. Now, again, this won't be perfect, but we'll work with what we have. And then I'm going to do the same thing for Holly. So Holly, let's go back and start with 0, 6. So Holly is not off to a good start. She's only read 6 pages, but she's going to read pretty quickly. So let's look at 486. It'll be somewhere there. Let's go 8, 166. So that's actually going to be pretty close to where Monisha is. That looks like where she's going to catch up. And 10, 206. So that'll be somewhere over here. All right, so let's try and draw this. Oh, that was pretty bad. Let's redo that. All right, not too bad. I'll take that. So we have our 2 points. Based on just drawing this by hand, we know that these intersect somewhere in this area. So again, this is a rough sketch. We don't know exactly where, but we can use the calculator for that. So the question is, assuming Holly and Monisha both maintain their reading plan, when will Holly catch up with Monisha? So it's going to be somewhere in that orange range. I'll use the graphing calculator to get the exact answer. And who will finish reading the novel first? Well, right away we can say that Holly will finish first. We don't need any other information, because after about 8 or so days, Holly passes Monisha, and she's working at a faster pace, so she'll continue to stay ahead. I don't know how many days. We're not concerned with that. So the next part of this, finding the actual solution, if I go back to my graph, well, let's not do that. Let's look at we see that x and y, when x is 8, our y's are pretty close, 168, 166. So my educated guess is that somewhere around 8 days is when Holly catches up. So we're going to go to our graph. Let's try that one more time. There we go. And we want to find the intersection point between those two. So what we can do is you're going to hit second and then trace, which is the calculate button. And we're going to go down to intersect, option 5. So we hit enter. And now it's going to ask us for the first curve. And notice if I hit my arrow keys here, it scrolls along that blue line. If I hit down, it's going to jump to the red line. It doesn't matter which one you choose as the first curve. So in this case, the blue one, I'm just telling the calculator that that's my first curve. Hit enter. Now the cursor jumps to the red line. Again, just make sure it's the opposite of what you just chose. So the first curve was blue. The second curve, I'll hit enter on the red line. Now it's going to ask for a guess. Here, I want to try and scroll as close to the solution as I can. So it's going to be somewhere around there. Hit enter. And then that tells me that the intersection point, let's write this in green, tells me the intersection point is x equals 8.18, y equals 169.63, or we'll round up, we'll say 64. So what's going to happen then, that's our intersection. So the solution is going to be about somewhere in the 8-day range, like we kind of said based on our table. So although not perfectly accurate, our graph is pretty close. It does give us a good idea of when they meet up, or when, Holly catches up to Monisha. So Monisha will maintain their reading plan. When will Holly catch up with Monisha? Holly will catch up on day 8. Okay, so more accurately about 8.18, but we'll say with day 8, and we can go with there. Okay, so we'll say that these are our solutions. And that's it. The next video, I'll go into a little more detail with the intersection points, so we'll keep practicing that so we know how to find answers when they're not right on the corner of a grid.